In the last video, we filled all the holes we'd cut into our van with a max air vent and windows. We had one hole left over, and that was for the air conditioner. This time, we have to put the air conditioner up on top of the roof, and because it's so heavy, we had to figure out a way to get up there. This is not easy, but we did find some videos that gave us a clue on how to get it up there ourselves. This worked great until it didn't. Well, we managed to get it on top of the roof using a forklift that our friend John had on the end of his tractor. We got it bolted in while we were on the spot so we wouldn't lose it on the way. Then we built the box to mount everything to. It's simply 3/4 inch plywood, but we used pocket screws to hold it together. Afterwards, we stained it brown and put rubber on top of it.
I just do two and leave it at that?
We hadn't really planned to build it this way, but we wanted to cover up the wheel well anyway and make sure that it wasn't going to interfere with the cabinetry that we were going to put in. Plus, the top of it made a very useful shelf to hold what it was going to be the batteries, but ended up being the inverter instead. The batteries ended up down here in the pocket closest to the camera. This was my first experience using pocket screws, so it was a little bit dicey there for a while, but everything went together all right. I didn't show the actual cutting of the top of the box, but it's simply a square of wood that goes across the top and covers the ends of the box. Another change of plans was the low voltage panel was going to go where my hand is resting now. Here it is with the top and the batteries. They were going to go there, but it didn't feel safe. So we put them down where they're showing now and then slid them against the wall. The DC to DC converter was wired in. We got 12 volts off the batteries. I had Tony start the engine and then we checked it, and lo and behold,
14.20. It is charging.
So we are getting a charging voltage from those wires. These could be installed on the DC to DC converter and it won't hurt anything to do it early.
The fun part.
Now we have to cable everything up.
Yes, tomorrow.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to parallel these batteries. They're 12 volts apiece.
Building cables.
And together they're going to be 600 watt hours. We have all the tools and parts left over from the ambulance assembly, so we're well familiar with putting this together with the proper copper ends. I've been waiting a long time to get these hooked up. I really wanted to see these things work. Also, now that we've got the air conditioner up in the ceiling, I'm anxious to get a wire up to that and see if it actually works after its unfortunate encounter with the ground. Now you see where I put the inverter and put it on the top so that everything will be mounting to it from the bottom side. This works out best. I feel safer that the bed's not above batteries and it's just above the hardware. All these electrical components will be inside the garage underneath the bed, but still accessible when we want to turn everything on. We shot these over a course of several days. You'll notice my shirt changes 3 times in here. And somewhere along the way I lost the beard. This actually was the fun part for me, putting all these components in there and making them work.
Something makes me want to cry.
I know.
All I have to do here merely is just poke holes in the wood
You really get into
to
your
put
work.
the wires in where they need to come out underneath the components. That way most of the electrical wiring is completely hidden away. There's the mega fuse going in for the main power. And this switch turns the battery power on and off. It's essential we turn this on before we ever turn the solar power on, because you could damage the components with solar power coming in and not being hooked to batteries. I had to make some modifications to the lug here so that the fuse would actually hook to it. I put it on and took it off several times, getting everything just right so it would line up. As you can see, the MPPT is over there. We've mounted that on the wall and are strapping down the wires. And the cutoff switch for the solar panels up top. The diagram I've got taped on the side there is one I put together just so I could keep track of where everything went and so that we wouldn't end up crossing any wires. All right. Here I am just tidying up these cables from the MPPT solar converter. I want this to look a whole lot cleaner than last time, so I'm just making sure everything is nice and professional. Now, on the next day, I'm working on setting up the DC to DC converter, getting all the wires and breakers in place so that everything is going to run smoothly. Here I'm just double checking everything with a multi-tester to make sure we've got the right readings before we move on. Just giving the breaker a quick once-over to confirm all is good.
For all the fuses.
Now I'm finishing up bolting that breaker down. Once that's secure, our DC to DC setup is pretty much good to go.
Breaker on. First part.
Awesome.
Where's the accessory?
Double checking the map here, making sure all the wires are routed exactly where they need to be so that we don't run into any surprises later on. Now here I'm installing a cross nut for the brace. It's just a little 2x4 support to keep everything nice and stable on the electrical box. I'm working on the system ground here. I'm sanding off the paint on the body so we get a really good solid metal to metal connection.
Hold that one there.
I'm testing the ground now with a multimeter and make sure that it's a great ground connection.
That's a pretty darn good ground.
So, we're in good shape.
Ooh.
Just crimped that ground cable and hooking it up to the inverter so that we have a nice clean path for everything. Now I'm pulling the ground wire through the box and connecting it to the Victron Lynx distributor. Just making sure everything lines up.
They sure don't want to pull in, that's for sure.
Woo! Look at there.
I'm cutting the cable here and crimping a lug onto it so it fits snugly.
Am I still alive?
You are.
Bending that 4/0 cable into a 90-degree angle here. It's a bit of a workout, but we'll get it bolted down nice and secure.
Is it hot still?
Now we're drilling some holes for the inverter cable, just making room for them to pass through the box and come out where they need to under the components.
Might require
Socket.
a socket. Let's see if you could. I think.
Final tie down to the fuses in the cover, just buttoning things up here. And putting the cover on the Lynx distributor. That's pretty much the final touch for this part.
Really fine. Oh, that was all set. Oh.
Crimping the ends of the cable for the 120 volt breaker panel. Just a bit of finishing work. Attaching the cable to the inverter, double checking that all the connections are solid. And now we're checking the monitor to see that it sees all the power sources. It looks like everything's talking to each other just fine.
Oh. Let's see.
Batteries are
Nice.
Here I am programming the MultiPlus 3000 to recognize our lithium batteries, since it's set up for AGM by default. We're using the adapter that you have to purchase separately to program your MultiPlus, but I happen to have one left over from the last build. Now we're drilling in the shore power connection on the van's exterior so we can plug it in when we need to. This is the cable from that shore power port straight to the MultiPlus 3000. That way we can feed power directly in whenever we're hooked up outside. And now we've got 3 sources of power all set up: shore power, solar power, and the DC to DC converter. Everything's working together just like we planned.
Wow.
I'm wiring up the air conditioner unit and giving it a test run to see how it all fits together.
Something needs to.
Right, babe.
Now what do we do?
Grab the remote.
Made a beep.
And there it goes. The AC is humming along, which is a great sign.
Wow.
I do notice that the AC is pulling a lot of juice from the batteries. 1340 at this moment. So we'll probably only run it when we're plugged into the shore power just to keep things efficient.
74. Oh my Lord. Oh, you gotta try.
Wow, I just got a... Oh. Wow.
And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this little walkthrough, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Air conditioner.
The air conditioner is air conditioner.
Oh, it is beautiful.